Life is always more hunky-dory at the top, right? You're sharing those laughs, you're cracking that champagne bottle, you got all the fancy cheese and cracker setups, the desserts with the miniature umbrellas on top of them. Felix, I would like some more of the caviar, please. Frederick, where are the little wine samples? Oh, those initial TKO parties, they must have been a blast. As Ari Emanuel and Vincent Kennedy McMahon were finalizing that $9 billion deal, Vince cashing out and Ari honestly believing that he's going to make that up and then a whole lot more on the back end. And that might be true one day, but right now is not that day. And things are not so hunky-dory anymore with WWE's financial state and the way that Endeavor is looking at the future with WWE now under its thumb. It's not hunky-dory anymore. WWE is losing a lot of money ever since that deal became official. BC's got the latest number on what they're trading at. And the same people at that dinner party that are chumming it up and looking as if they're best friends, like they've known each other since birth, practically brothers. When things are not going hunky-dory, it's always fun to sit back and just watch them all turn on one another. Because when big companies like this start losing money, oh, they start turning on one another. And Ari looks to already be chucking Vincent Kennedy McMahon under the bus. So we're going to go over the financial state for World Wrestling Entertainment and TKO Group Holdings. We're going to go over the numbers. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what they're trading at. Numbers I have not seen in many, many months, maybe years. We'll talk about it. And we'll also discuss what Ari said about Vince McMahon being one of 3 issues as to why they're losing this money. We're also going to talk on the flip side, AEW's Tony Khan. Of course, he was still is one of the biggest topics in the pro wrestling world. He has unraveled ever since NXT defeated AEW in the ratings on Tuesday night. And when I mean unraveled, sadly, it's not like, oh, the crazy fun drunk uncle who once again he located his phone and he was able to start sending things out in 140 characters and you just laugh at it. Because with a lot of what Tony Khan says, we can just laugh at it, right? He's the crazy drunk uncle. What he was saying about like Undertaker and John Cena, I mean, these are potty shots that have you can't even laugh at them. They have no business being said by somebody who's an owner of a company who has so many individuals that look up to him to be the mature, responsible adult and lead the company. Not somebody who's going to say the most wildest things. So when your talent has to go into an interview or is asked about these things, they have to try to defend that somehow. When most think it's absolutely ludicrous that I have to talk about this dude's dig to a lot of their friends, like Adam Copeland, Edge's friends, John Cena and The Undertaker. Imagine him being asked about something like that, or Bryan Danielson. They shouldn't have to do that, but one too many times Tony Khan is saying something so outlandish, and he's becoming the headline more than the talent, more than the show. It's no wonder CM Punk didn't last there. Those were 2 egos that were going to clash. Punk was taking over the headlines, or wanted to, even if it was in backstage antics, and Tony Khan was like, no, I said hold my beer, hold my coffee. I'm the headlines around here, buddy. So it's no shocker, I guess, that Khan and Punk couldn't really see eye to eye. But he's tried to defend his words over the last couple of days. He's telling you now why it means more to him. It's more personal over business. And when it's all said and done, his latest statement adds more fuel to tribalism. It adds more fuel to hatred in the community. It really does. I don't think he stops to think about this stuff. That's why, if anybody at all is in the vicinity of this dude that loves him, that truly cares about him, take the phone away. The whole community is trying, pleading, begging for somebody to step in and say, let the talent, let the roster be the headlines, your shows. Stop being the guy. It ain't working. And you're hurting the company more than anything. That's the cold open teaser. We'll talk about what he said, defending his latest words and insults and why this is so meaningful to him. And I honestly feel it does more harm than helps his cause. We're also going to talk SmackDown, the season premiere tonight. Wait till you hear what WWE is doing tonight. A major return off the milk carton, and he's showing up to work. We'll talk all about it. BC's going to crack this fresh Starbucks Frappuccino, lock in those earbuds, smash that up, come right on back. Let's get amplified. You know. And we'll get to the bigger stories in just a little bit, like WWE's Vince McMahon being thrown under the bus by his new boss, Ari. That didn't take long. The second you start losing money in these big companies, friends, what are those? But we were pals, pal. We were good buddies. We were sharing wine and eating those little fancy crackers. Damn you to hell. I'm taking the deal back. I want my company. What does that mean for me, my tribal father-in-law? Shut up, you doofus son-in-law. Okay, bye. I'm gonna go book SmackDown now. I've got 65 minutes of sleep, guys. Went to bed around 3:30 a.m. Got up at about 4:35, maybe. I don't know, man. Lots of coffee. Anyway, we'll start off with one of the smaller stories, and that is SmackDown tonight. I got the official preview for you. They are advertising the return. Can't believe I'm saying this. Is it happening? Is he no longer on the milk carton? Did he get off his island? Not of relevancy, but the Bermuda Island, or the very tip of Florida's peninsula, with a martini in one hand and a margarita in the other. Did he put those cocktails down? And is he actually showing up to work? Because they're advertising Roman Reigns tonight for what they're calling the season premiere of SmackDown. Roman Reigns obviously will be setting something up for Crown Jewel. We believe AJ Styles will be returning tonight, and they'll set that match in motion. Supposed to be Bad Bunny. Take you back behind the curtain a little bit. It was actually they wanted to do an exhibition match for Crown Jewel with Roman, like Logan Paul and Roman. And they thought Bad Bunny was the perfect thing. Bad Bunny was talking a little bit of shit. Roman responded a couple of 2-3 times. So they planted the seeds a little bit. But it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get Bad Bunny. So expect AJ Styles, if not tonight. But within the week, they're kind of, what is it, the 4th, right? So you got to do this. If not tonight, you'll still have 3 weeks, actually, man. You will. But Roman doesn't show up every week. That's the problem. So I believe he only has 2 appearances before Crown Jewel. Tonight is already one of them. So no, I expect them probably tonight if they're going to do Styles and Roman for Crown Jewel. So we'll see. But Roman is coming back. Now, Triple H is also going to have a major announcement tonight. Now, if his announcement isn't about Crown Jewel, maybe even to do with Roman's match, if it's not, then expect him to announce War Games for Survivor Series, which is also next month. 3 Saturdays after Crown Jewel, actually. The 4th of November is Crown Jewel, and 3 weeks later on the 25th of November is Survivor Series Chicago, Illinois. So we expect it just to be pay-per-view related, PLE related, but Paul Levesque McMahon is going to be there tonight. Roman Reigns is showing up to work. About time. You know, I always say you don't have to wrestle all the time when you're the heavyweight champion. No question. It makes you less special if you're just like everybody else. I actually like the fact that he misses weeks. I've said that for the longest time before they started doing that with Joanna White. I said that Hulk Hogan didn't show up every week. A lot of weeks, but he missed a week here and there. And when he did show up, a lot of the times it was just for a promo. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene, with Mean Gene Okerlund at a separate platform. Not the ring, not the entranceway. They had like this little platform just for Mean Gene Okerlund. And it was cool. It felt special when somebody was coming out to be interviewed. But that's all Hulk really did. He wrestled at a Saturday Night's Main Event and a pay-per-view. Hulk Hogan wasn't really wrestling on Superstars of Wrestling every Saturday, guys. Or Wrestling Challenge on Sunday. Or primetime wrestling matches. So, some of that, I know it's 2023 and attention spans are like fucking peanut sized, coffee bean sized. I understand. But you still need to feel special. It's why Goldberg and the streak and all that was so special. He was something different, an attraction in and of itself. Roman Reigns is an attraction in and of itself, or at least became such. I like it. Now, the flip side. On the other hand, it's too much, bro. You still have to show up. Hogan at least showed up to do those Mean Gene interviews. You have to show up because storylines depend on it. And this dude was part of one of the biggest storylines that we've seen in recent memory in pro wrestling, the Bloodline. Now, I know you're going to have lulls, right? You're not always going to have the peaks like Sami Zayn getting turned on by the Bloodline, or if he was going to turn on the Bloodline, right? Or the Montreal peak at the PLE, Elimination Chamber. Or Cody Rhodes, is he going to overcome the entire Bloodline? Instead, he's laying down next to a rubber chicken. That's another story. But you have those peaks, right? Jay going against the Bloodline. What's Jimmy's decision? You have those peaks that just kept coming. And you thought, this is a story that is so good because it just doesn't stop. There's always a new level just when you think it's coming to an end. But this dude, Roman, misses so much time that, unfortunately, I think we're all feeling, or most of us are feeling the same way. This story is pretty much done. The Bloodline is done. When Paul Levesque McMahon at the WrestleMania media scrum said there's more story to tell for anyone that doesn't think this was the right decision to have Cody lay down next to the rubber chicken instead of the championship. No, we said that. There's no way you're keeping this another year. If Cody ever takes on Roman at 40, which could happen if they can't land The Rock, you'll never get that moment back, first of all, at 39. It'll be a separate moment, and people will be clamoring for him to finally lose the title, so you'll get the big pop and everything, but it won't be that electric moment. It was just the right time and place, everything. The stars aligned for Cody to get the title at Mania. I've said it a million times. But I said, even if they face each other at 40, you're starting a whole nother story by that point. You're not keeping this story going, right? Long-term storytelling, BC. They went away for it for a good 10 months, but then they came back to it, and that makes it long-term storytelling. That's creating a new story. Stop. Just because you have a rematch with somebody, if that's the case, you have so many long-term storylines in WWE because we constantly see rematches. Sethington versus Drew McIntyre is going to happen again at Crown Jewel. Again. And we don't even have a heel Drew. We have a Drew with a fucking teenager tantrum attitude twist, right? He's slightly more miserable. Drew is a little bit more moody, right? He's on the fucking... I won't say it. He's a little moody. We'll just say that. It's like the Austin Theory thing. But you see, it's a reset. No, it's not. He put down the cell phone, and he's got more of a fucking teenage attitude now, right? He's more moody when he wakes up. It's the same Austin Theory. It's a reason that all these months you still got no response for the guy, and Jonathan Cena has to stand across him before Mania and say, you listen to that? Exactly. It's no noise. It's the reason they got to pipe in booze, because nobody cares about you. And that was months ago, and Jonathan Cena was right. Here we are months later, they're still pumping in the booze, and nobody cares about Theory. But I was told a reset is in play. Well, where's the reset in play? I have a lot of fun on these podcasts. Anyway, it's the same deal here, man. You're going to revisit Cody and Roman. By that point, you're going to have to come up with a whole new thing. The Bloodline thing is done. And sadly, it's ran its course, and that's because Roman just has such gaps in this schedule. I'm okay if you don't want to wrestle, But the fact that you're not jumping on a plane, even if it's a private jet, right? BC, there could be health concerns with what he's fought in the past. Do you know how many times they fly that company jet out for individuals a week? You guys would be fucking flabbergasted if you knew the number of times they sent that jet out for just individuals. How many times they've sent it out for Jonathan Cena and Roman. Every couple of weeks, you can send the jet over to get a Mr. Anna Y. And because of that, guys, the Bloodline storyline, I know I'm not the only one feeling like this. The Bloodline storyline is pretty much, it's beyond stale. It's just fallen. It's fallen to the wayside. It's like they all just gave up on it. Or they all just said, well, we're going to wait. We're in a holding period, right? We're just going to hold tight until Roman comes back, and that's when it's really going to pick up. And I have no doubt that when Roman comes out tonight, the chants will be electric, the fans will be excited, and we'll feel like the Bloodline is back in some semblance. But as far as a storyline, man, it's got you kind of missing the Sami Zayn days, doesn't it? Kind of got you missing like Cody going into Mania. We got nothing now, but Jay is trying to make friends on Raw, and Jimmy weaseled his way into the New Day, into the Bloodline. That's it. I don't know how that exciting it is for you guys. Solo and Jimmy having a bunch of tag matches and just fighting together as if they're the only members in the Bloodline. You removed Jay. Roman never shows up. And I'm watching a Solo and Jimmy tag team. One of my favorite tag teams in the world is Jimmy and Jay the Usos. No offense to Solo. He'll have a great individual career. He's got the look. He's got everything. All the tools, the right people around him. But that's a downgraded Usos, if you ask me. Jimmy and Jay are the Usos. So I'm just watching this. It's not a faction anymore. I'm watching Solo and Jimmy do a bunch of... just get beat up all the time. That's all they're doing. They're just getting beat up all the time. Anyway... can you tell I had a little something to say about Roman Reigns not showing up to work anymore? Well, tonight he's off the milk carton. Tonight he's getting off his little island, whether it's the island of relevancy or a little private island with all his cocktails, his margaritas, his martinis. Good for him. Put him down, show up to work, and let's see if we can get some semblance of a story created so that on November 4th at Crown Jewel, we'll care about your match. Also tonight, as I said, Paul Levesque McMahon, Triple H, doofus, you doofus son-in-law. He'll be live in the middle of the ring with a major announcement. And you know, when they say a major announcement in pro wrestling, usually it is the opposite of a major announcement. We'll give the dude the benefit of the doubt, and that's why I do review shows. Because on the review tomorrow, if this was not a major announcement, you're going to hear about it from BC Amplified tomorrow during the review. Also tonight, Pretty Deadly will be taking on Holland and Butch of the Brawling Brutes. Storyline there is that Holland took out, which one did he take? I forgot who he took. I don't know. Dropped one of them on their shoulders, and they've been playing it up in some fun comedy segment, actually. Usually the WWE comedy segments are pretty stupid. These ones are so damn stupid, they're actually funny. Like an SNL skit. You ever watch SNL, Saturday Night Live? Everything is so stupid for about an hour and a half. And yet, you watch it. Or a lot of it, because it's so stupid, it makes you laugh. Pretty Deadly actually is pretty funny. Pretty Deadly is pretty funny. We'll see what they do with Holland and Butch tonight. Also, Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso will have an open challenge for their tag team championships. If I'm Judgment Day, I'd be a little upset. We just beat KO and Sammy to get our rematch. Now we might not even be taking you on. It's WWE. We didn't say it all makes sense. And again, it's a season premiere tonight for WWE Smackdown. I will be with you guys tomorrow for the complete, fully amplified review of this show. We'll wait on the Tony Khan stuff. We'll go over to Vincent Kennedy. Now, if you guys do not know, check this out. I'll try to remember and post-edit. I don't know if I'm even going to have the time to do this. But I'll try to show you guys. But take my word for it. They are trading right now. TKO Holdings, okay? It's no longer WWE. solely as a company stock. They're now trading under their merged Endeavor name, TKO Group Holdings. Now, WWE just a few months ago was trading over $100 a smack. They were trading over 100, guys. Just a few months ago. Remember when business was booming? That's all we hear, right? The wrestling business is booming. And I was the only one to say, hold on. Now, no, it's not. No. WWE is making record profit because Vince is liquidating, right? All these decades of working hard, busting his ass, and creating WWF and then E, and now he's finally liquidating and selling. That's what you're seeing with the big TV rights deals. That's what you're seeing with companies like Saudi Arabia paying all the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars for his performers to go to their country, and you're going to make $100 million? The streaming, right? Streaming became big. You have this whole library. Here comes Peacock with $1 billion, right? Liquidating, and you're making all this record profit. Awesome. Shareholders, the stock, they love that. You're going to go over 100. Then the deal came with Endeavor, and everybody kind of was holding their breath a little bit. Not going down, but not going up, kind of staying steady. And then the deal became official just last month. And you started to see that 100 drop to 91. Then it dropped to 87. Then all of a sudden it went to 84, 81, and now 78 is where they're trading at. 78. Their open, I believe, was 80 this morning. I don't know why I'm also seeing 79, and at one point I saw 78. I thought the open was 80, and as of 1 p.m., I believe, Eastern Time, they were at the 78, I believe. If the timeline's a little off, the point is they're at 78 trading. Now, why this is a big deal is that not long ago, a year, maybe two, I'm being extremely broad here, but at least a year, a little more than a year ago, I recall them, and it could have been two. Again, my timeline's a little off. I got 65 minutes of sleep, but they were trading at 60 some odd. 67, 68. I recall this. And that wasn't bad either for WWE. But then they got really hot. The deal started really flowing in. All of these talks about a sale and how they were really condensing their company and really making it look sexy to the point where the stock was liking what they were seeing. You started to see that go to 70, 80, and then into the 90s and eventually crack 100. Pretty cool. Good for them, right? Business was booming. And because of that, people got the wrong idea. They thought the wrestling business was booming. No, WWE is. The ratings for every other show were either stagnant or going backwards. The interest and intrigue in pro wrestling was either stagnant or going backwards, regressing. So the wrestling business wasn't booming. They conflicted that with WWE's business booming. WWE's financials were booming over the last several years. Every time you turned around, it's a new story about how WWE is getting record revenue, right? WWE sold out another stadium or another arena, or it's the highest or the best financial revenue pulled in on a certain given show or state and city. Every which way. Lately, every Raw, every SmackDown. Oh, this city is reporting record revenue for the arena. WWE touts major success. That's all you're seeing, left and right. So people are thinking, whoa, man, with all the money that WWE is making, business is booming. But what happens, and I've been telling you guys this for the longest time, but the last several weeks, I've been saying this like a broken record. What happens when you're not making that record revenue anymore? What happens when you're losing money? What happens when your shareholders, when the stock is not liking what they're seeing and it's plummeting? What happens then? You're not going to hear the wrestling business is booming, are you? Because WWE's financials is no longer booming. Vince cashed out. Ari is left with the bill. And when that happens, they'll turn on one another. And that's what happened. You're trading at 78. My point in all this is this. A year, 2 years ago, whatever it was, when they were pulling in that 60, and you thought when they cracked 100, wow, those days are long gone. I remember when they were so low at 60. And again, we didn't even look at it as that low. But when you're trading at 100 plus, 60, you thinking those days will never be back. Guys, they plummeted 22 points already. They're 8 or 9 points away from being right back into the 60s. That quickly. And the deal just began. And if you ask Ari, he says there's possibly 3 reasons. Ari Emanuel, CEO, the guy of Endeavor, Vince McMahon's boss, technically, says reason number 1, the stock is down, is that the market thought Raw was the best package. I saw a 40% increase, which was in line with expectations. What he's telling you is, no, your $287 million a year for 5 years is not what the market was expecting. Because Nick Khan talked such a big game for so long, they were expecting upwards of 315 to 325. And that's up front. BC was hearing even more, by the way. I was hearing up to 340. That's another story. But if you look at the 315 to 325, they pulled 287, we'll do the math. Let's do some Steiner math. I don't have a calculator here. I'll do it off the top of my dome piece. I made it to at least, what I make it to? 10th, 11th grade? I went to one of those. So 287 to, let's say bare minimum, 325. 287, 13 plus 25, 35, 38. $38 million times 5, because it's a 5-year deal. 38 times 5, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. What is that, $190 million? 38 times 5, correct? 100, what'd I say, 198. Oh, this is going to tick me off. 38 times 5. Well, 30 times 5 is $1.50, and then 8 times 5 is 40, so $1.50 plus 4. $1.90. That's what I'm sticking with. That's my Steiner math. If you carry the 2 and bring over the 0 and you take down the 1, but the 5 remains, then the 6 is going to outweigh the 9, and before you know it, you got your Steiner math. Funny, man. But that's SmackDown, guys. That whole 287 for 5 years, when the market thought they could hit 315, 320, maybe even 340 a year. And they ended up at 287 for 5 years. That's SmackDown that we're talking about. NBC Universal Comcast, the USA Network, they purchased SmackDown. So Ari is telling you that one of the 3 biggest issues right now is why the stock is plummeting for them. One of them is because the market thought that Raw was the best package. So they saw SmackDown lose nearly $200 million, or at least $200 million left on the table. So they're thinking, if SmackDown left $200 million on the table, what is Raw gonna leave? Raw's pulling in less viewership, by the way. So if that's what made people panic on SmackDown, what is Raw gonna do? Leave $300 million on the table? Are we possibly gonna have $500 million left on the sidelines when this is said and done? And it makes the market panic. That's why you're seeing these stacked NXT shows. The financials behind it are massive. The repercussions are amplified. If you don't meet these goals in these metrics, that market will come crashing down on them. And that's what they're starting to see. They need the best possible deal for even NXT just to try to offset the losses that the market thought they were getting. Hope that makes sense, by the way. Number 2, it's hard to explain all of this jargon when a lot of people don't even care about all the numbers and the financials. I feel it's important to talk about on this channel, though, just so you know why things are happening, right? I always like to give you guys the big backstory, so that if one day in the near future you hear that Vince McMahon has totally cashed out and he's no longer even in the company, you guys are fully equipped with all the knowledge as to know how these steps took place to finally lead him out the door. So I always like to keep you guys afloat with all of the even the littlest of details. They might not seem that interesting, it might be a little confusing, but it's good to know. If you love the ins and outs of pro wrestling anyway, like BC. Anyway, that's number 1. The market thought Raw was the best package. He says, I saw a 40% increase, which was in line with expectations. Well, you greatly undervalued your own market. 2, he says the PFL situation, and then 3, probably Vince McMahon in our deal. He, Vince, wanted to be able to put up any point in time his stock. At any point in time, he wanted to put his stock up. on the market. He's 78 years old. He's been working at this for decades. So I think those 3 back-to-back issues is what led to the crash. Now, if you guys don't know too, and I went over this so many times, I'll keep this brief. I'll just give you exactly what this article, who's this from, by the way? I don't even know who this is from. But so basically, after the TKO group officially formed in September, the reports were sent out, and these were in filings too, so reputable, that McMahon's shares totaled about $3 billion. That's what they're totaling anyway. I think it's a little more than that. They were all registered for sale, and this gives McMahon flexibility to avoid the lockup period. I've talked about this in the past. The lockup period applies to any and all TKO stockholders, as it will with any entity. If you're in the stock market, you cannot, there's a lockup period around transactions, sales, things like that. And the reason is because if you have insider knowledge, you can wheel and deal. If you know something, you can sell everything and greatly manipulate the market. Or you could buy a lot of something because you know something a lot of others don't. When you're in that situation, when you're on the inside looking out, you cannot trade during a certain period of time. It's a lockup period. So Vince and everybody on that board of directors, all of them, was in this lockup period. But the deal that they had in place is that Vince will be able to avoid the lockup period. He, at any point in time, can put all of that up on the market. And that sends a little panic as well. Well, wait a second. You told us that Vince is going to, carry you into the future with all the business transactions and all the TV rights deals and all the big business with the WWE. And then all of a sudden, at any moment in time, he could walk out and we don't have a say. We don't know about it. He just walks. He got to avoid that. Vince McMahon is like a magician. He gets to avoid any liability. It's amazing. I can't even player hate at this point. It's a gift. How he can just manipulate and maneuver so fluently and what seems like flawlessly. But he was able to avoid that lockup period. And Ari, once you start seeing that 100 go to 90 and 80 and 70, and you know that 60 is inevitably on the horizon, unfortunately, because there's no end. I mean, going into the holidays, if you guys think WWE stock is going back to 80 and 90, or 80 possibly for a few days, I mean, they're at 78. But if you think they're going that high into the holidays, then probably not going to happen. It would take something monumental. I'm not saying it's impossible. But he knows that they're going to be right back to some of WWE's lower end days. And when that happens, you're going to turn on one another. And he put Vince McMahon as one of the 3 reasons as to why the stock is crumbling down into the 70s already. He says, I think Vince McMahon's one of the 3 issues. You know that Vince McMahon is not going to be or take too kindly to that. I'll keep on top of that situation, guys. But WWE is losing a lot of cash right now, a lot of trust, a lot of reassurance, a lot of dependability. All of that has been lost since this deal took place. At some point, you weigh out the positives and negatives, of how much good is Vince McMahon for the business side of things, guys. He's really good for business. He is, and he's not in charge of the creative that much at all. I mean, he could send something over to H here and then, but Paul Levesque McMahon said he goes to Vince when he's in a conundrum. He finds himself going to Vince with a lot of questions. Paul has to learn to think on his own feet. This isn't NXT Black and Gold, where you only had the book for 1 hour a week, and you were tucked in on a network, the WWE Network streaming service, on their streaming service. No, this is 2 hours on Friday nights, and it's 3 hours on Raw. And it's clear that Paul doesn't have a grasp on how to book 2-hour shows and 3-hour shows. He doesn't know how to do it. Paul needs a lot of help. A lot of fans, they just put him on the pedestal because he was around for black and gold. He ushered in the black and gold of NXT. Where's that same energy for Dusty Rhodes and the William Regals and those people that really created NXT, really worked with the Sasha Bankses and the Sammys? All of them, they were all, from the Sethington Rollinses to the Romans. They were all Dusty's kids before they looked at Papa H as such. They were Dusty's kids. They called themselves Dusty's kids. And with the knowledge of William Regal, they rocked it on the coin, on the money and financials of Vince McMahon, even though he never drew a dime from NXT. They never made a profit. And Vince McMahon kept footing that bill. Dusty and William Regal and Norman Smiley and all of them busting their ass to teach these kids the right way and do good business. And here comes the company jet. Couple 2-3 times a week, it's Papa H. And we just put him on a pedestal and we just think that he's going to be the answer for Raw and SmackDown going forward. No, he can be a answer. He needs a lot of help. WWE Raw is still stagnant. And if you think just pushing a Tegan Nox is going to help, if you think adding 7 minutes to matches is going to help, the ratings are showing you they're stuck at 1.5, and that's being generous, by the way. If you told me they were at 1.4 and even 1.3 the last 2 weeks, I wouldn't have blinked an eye. But you have Paul Levesque doing the creative, and Vince is solely, for the most part, he's just doing the business part now. But if this is going to make the market crash or panic so badly, you got to wonder, is even him doing the business side of it, is this good long-term for Ari and Endeavor? Anyway, it's great and hunky-dory when you're at the top, pulling in record revenue. But when it comes crushing down and it hurts inside, Hulk Hogan's theme song. When it comes crushing down and the party is over and it's not so hunky-dory and you're losing a lot of money, you start throwing your friends under the bus. Ari just chucked Vince under the bus. I'll keep an eye on that, of course. Now, moving on to something that we've been talking about just yesterday, actually, but it was 2 podcasts. We put up one about Tony Khan slamming Paul Levesque McMahon and Shawn Michaels, calling them bald assholes, telling Triple H, you want to be a dick? I'll go commercial free too. I mean, he was setting up this war going into Tuesday, and he wanted to win so badly that when NXT beat AEW, Tony Khan unraveled, called Michaels and Paul Levesque McMahon, Triple H, bald assholes, took a low blow shot at Vince McMahon amidst his allegations. We won't get into it, but he took the potty shot over to Vince. But we had a podcast about it, and we just talked about the positives and negatives. How we just laugh because he's like the drunk uncle, the crazy drunk uncle. But we also, in that first podcast yesterday, we talked about how maybe it's not best for business because he's hurting his talent, who now has to answer for that and is now saying that, yeah, that's our leader, that's our boss. It puts them in just a bad position. And then 3 hours later, I had to put up another podcast because he was still going at it on his social doohickey machine. And he brought John Cena and The Undertaker into the mix and totally slammed them, saying that with all due respect, Tuesday was the first time they couldn't pull 1 million viewers and 400 in the demo. How can you say something like that about The Undertaker and Cena, bro? Like, knowing the competition that they had, you were part of it. And they did beat you by over half of the audience that you were able to pull, over 300,000 viewers. And a lot of people go, well, yeah, what Tony said was not right, but we can't forget that what WWE did is not right. They stacked the card, and they have to learn to do it without the main roster. We know. We've said that 1,000 times. The podcast wasn't about that yesterday, and that's not the discussion now. We already are over that. They can do whatever they want. It's their company. When you own your own, you can talk about what's fair and what's not fair. All is fair in love and war. But we were past that. It's about now you lost, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, learn the lessons that you just learned, hopefully, and do better, be better next time. But to be childish about it. To act like a spoiled brat who, for the first time in life, didn't get your way because that's what it came off as. To bring in Taker and Cena to attack the talent. It's one thing when you're attacking the suits and ties, but the talent? So for those that are still saying, yeah, Tony was wrong, but what NXT did and Paul Levesque McMahon, it was so unfair, man. We're past that. Most of us, it's not about being fair. They stack the deck, and I don't know how this helps NXT long term, but that's what they decided to do for multiple reasons. They're trying to get a really big TV rights deal first and foremost. Number two, they're going against baseball and AEW on the same night. Yeah, they stacked it. But Tony Khan, man, for what he said, to have to put up a second podcast because he's talking about not hitting 400 in the demo and not hitting 1 million. Therefore, The Undertaker and John Cena's shrieks of good ratings is over. Bro, when's the last time that you saw 1 million in viewership, much less 400,000 in a key demo? It's not often. On top of that, you had Edge in your main event. Your total was 609,000 viewers. Edge, good buddies with Taker and Cena. Great ratings for decades for WWE. You're trashing Edge. You're trashing a lot of those dudes that are now working for you because your number was so shitty. Just doesn't think about it. So we put up that podcast as well, talking about that. And by the second podcast, man, a lot of you guys were able to catch both. You guys caught the one that went up around 12 Eastern time and then the one that went up around 3 p.m. And you saw two different tones from BC. The first one is a discussion. Is this just a crazy, funny, drunk uncle? And why maybe he should just lay off the social doohickey machine. The second podcast, it's not funny. John Cena and The Undertaker didn't deserve that type of respect to have this dude who's leading another company talk about how they're basically not a ratings draw anymore. Even using them, they couldn't pull the milli. And then you have fans that go, why do people think that just 1 million is what determines a good show? Because the boss of one of the biggest companies is telling you that unless you pull a milli, you're not relevant. He doesn't think, though, that his own show isn't pulling the milli. If you wonder where people come up with the term 1 million or bust, Tony Khan, Anthony Khan comes up with the term, guys. So then you got BC. Oh, BC, why don't you full throttle review AEW or Impact Wrestling, NXT? And I say, unless you get 1 million in viewership, I'm not going to review in full the show because it's not worth the time. There's not enough people interested in it. But my metrics are based on something totally different. Not just because 1 million sounds all cute and cuddly. It's because knowing where wrestling is today, that's the bare minimum for BC. Tony Khan uses the 1 million just as the benchmark. Just because. It's 1 million or bust, and if The Undertaker and Cena appeared and they didn't hit 1 million, then NXT failed. Said that about Shawn Michaels when they were just having fun online, and there was a picture of Shawn Michaels with a cigar and a nice outfit with a Booker of the Year award. And that's what they usually have with Tony every year, because Tony wins it every year because Melty Boy and all of them are usually in his pocket. So you have the Tony Khan cigar photo and the nice outfit, and he's got the award. And here's Shawn Michaels with it. And he flipped out after last night. He's not winning that for sure, he says. They beat you, though. And I was actually defending AEW after Tuesday, and when the ratings came out, I said, this isn't terrible, actually. Listen, they were on a different night, huge competition, and I never use competition as an excuse. But I say you take the 600, and you just run like you just robbed the bank. Don't look back. Don't pass go. Don't collect another $200. Take the rating and go. Instead, he just unraveled from losing to NXT. And to say that about Taker and Cena, I mean, to say that was so uncalled for is just, that's next level. And a lot of people had just great takes on it. Some people just didn't see this, were not thinking clearly. Some people just had really bad takes. That's where you just move on. You know, yeah, I understand it was bad, but NXT did fight unfairly. Unfair? What? And then there's the people that go, well, nobody won because I think Bubba I think I saw, I'm telling you, the dirt sheets love to run Bubba's shit because he always gives you something to talk about for sure, because it's Bubba and his stupidity. But Bubba's like, nobody won because NXT stacked their deck and they only pulled 921. Do you understand what NXT was doing? On the right side, they got AEW coming at them. They're just sitting at their Tuesday time slot. For weeks, they've been trying to pump up their ratings because they want the good TV rights deal. So they've been stacking the card. So they got AEW coming at them now. They look to the right. Here comes AEW from Wednesday nights. A show that, by the way, has been beating AEW since basically its inception. Just recently, NXT defeated AEW. That's if you look to the right, AEW is coming at you. Then if you look to the left, Major League Baseball playoffs is coming at you. That was on at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think it was like the Orioles and the Rangers, something like that. But baseball, a couple milli up there, up front, I know. So baseball playoffs, you have AEW coming up right up against your time slot and night. So yeah, they stacked it a little bit more. Never even saying The Undertaker, by the way. They literally just played the gong and said, hey, maybe The Undertaker. John Cena's involvement was to be in the corner of a guy named Mello. Again, we know who that is, but if you're a casual fan, you're like, oh, Mello? A candy bar? I don't know what that is. A soda? And in Braun Breaker's corner is Paul Heyman. Braun who? Braun Decker? No, he's not a chainsaw. Braun Breaker. But casual fans don't know. It's not like John Cena was having a WrestleMania caliber match. Asuka was showing up to take on Roxy. And if you don't know who Roxy is, then you're like, who? And by the way, they don't even call her that. They call her Roxanne Perez. Asuka versus Roxanne Perez? Again, Roxy is one of my favorite pro wrestlers on the planet in terms of females, or in general. But if you're a casual fan, I don't know how many extra eyeballs that's really going to bring. My point is, with all of this competition, which I never use as an excuse, and I never will, but I've always said, of course, competition is going to take a bite out of your number. It's up to you to produce the best possible product, hold on tight, and hope for the best. But you got to do that first step. Make the best possible product before you can even hold on and hope for the best. If you do that, you'll be all right. NXT was fucked this week. Baseball playoffs coming at you. AEW said, hey, by the way, we're coming on your night, your time. And they still came close to 1 million viewers just by adding some people on the show. They were able to not only keep what they pulled last week at 857, they were able to get another 60 to 70,000 viewers on board. So even with all this competition coming at them that's not usually there, they were able to go up in the ratings, not just even stay steady. It's not that bad. For anybody that thought, there was weird shit going on, like NXT's going to pull 1-2, 1-3, NXT's going to pull 1-5. Monday Night Raw pulls 1-5. They've been around for decades. What are you talking about? If you follow BC, I told you from the jump, my gauge was about 910 to 920 to about 960, 970. And I follow the trends, the numbers, the statistics. And if you follow trends, you can pretty much see where something's going to end up. Now, because of all this talent coming up, it was a fluctuation. We couldn't really pinpoint it, but my window was at about 910, 920 to about 960, 970. If you were going to press BC, I would have said it would be at the high end, meaning 960 to 970 is where I had NXT this week. They pulled the low end at 920. Still damn good. That's right in my window. Anybody that follows numbers knew cracking 1 million was never the goal of success or failure. So the people that go, well, nobody won. They only pulled 921. Or Tony Khan is right, though. I mean, they only pulled 921 with a stacked deck. It's not a stacked deck for Raw. It's not a stacked deck for SmackDown. It's a stacked deck for NXT. And still, not a lot of viewers watch traditionally every single week. Not on a consistent level. Just recently, they really started to hit a stride. This was an NXT show that's beating AEW in this week by a large margin. So to say that they whooped them, it was by a lot, but it's not that much. Or they didn't hit the million. Or that stacked of a deck, I would have expected 1-2, 1-3 maybe. What are you talking? Monday Night Raw pulls those type of numbers. They've been around for decades. And Monday night is appointment television for a lot of people. A lot of fans like BC that tune in out of habit and hope. Not because it's entertaining anymore, because Monday Night Raw hasn't been for 10 years. But we watch out of habit and hope. Habit because we've been watching Raw since we were kids, and hope, hoping that it gets better. You don't have that audience on Tuesdays. It's sad that we even have to have this conversation because together they pulled 1.5 plus. So pro wrestling won because on a Tuesday night against Major League Baseball playoffs, wrestling scored over 1.5. That's more than Monday Night Raw on a lot of weeks. But instead, we got the tribalism. We have to pit one against the other. And isn't it ironic that BC of all people, when I went over the ratings before this whole Tony Khan drama, I was saying, hey, this is, I mean, even though it was an ass whooping, everybody can look at this as a victory. Doesn't have to be any tribalism. This was a victory for pro wrestling. I said that, and I put that up, and all of a sudden Tony Khan unravels. But isn't it ironic that BC of all people was like, hey, you know what? This is actually good number-wise. But no, the tribalism is sparked. And who sparks it? The owner of the company, AEW. His name is Tony Khan. So when people go, tribalism is horrible in wrestling, if you're an AEW fan especially, and you're talking about tribalism being bad, or people need to stop, or they're the worst, I can only imagine how you're looking at your owner of AEW, Tony Khan, because he is the leader of the tribalism spark movement. Because whether he knows it or not, he just sparks tribalism. He just wants this war so badly with the WWE. We always have fun and we say Petty Paul Levesque, right? He wants to beat Tony Khan. But that's where it ends, at least. Tony Khan, like a mission statement or something. This guy unraveled. And nobody wants to take his phone away. Nobody wants to be truthful with him. The talent needs to step up before they have to speak out for him. And all the foolishness that spews out of him. Who would have thought, man, Vince Russo. A lot of people are actually giving Vince Russo some props because he made a very good point. And it's the point of that Tony Khan just likes to make himself the face of the company. Good, bad, or ugly, as long as you're talking about Tony Khan, he feels that's going to be a direct positive for AEW, and it's always the opposite, and it makes them look foolish. It's embarrassing for AEW. It hurts your roster. But Tony Khan is doing all the interviews, and Tony Khan makes himself the face. Meanwhile, he's so right. The AEW talent, they do interviews here and there, but they're always so insignificant, irrelevant. They're never the real big ones, never garnering the actual headlines. Listen to Vince Russo if you don't mind, because this is actually it's a good take, and it's something to think about. And maybe that's another thing where he should just step back from.
So the talent should always be out there in the forefront first. We are talking about a company that started with the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega. They were the face of the company from day one, bro, when there was that press conference in Vegas. But slowly but surely, Tony, you made yourself the face of the company. And you made yourself more important than everybody else on your roster. Now, why do I say that? It's real simple, bro. You do every interview. You go on every show. You are answering people on social media that have 25 followers. Tony, that's where you put the talent. Let the talent do the Dan Lebatard shows. Let the talent do Busted Open. Get your talent out there. Showcase your talent.
It was a great rant by Russo. I got to give him a lot of props. There's always been something about Russo. He's out there, he's wild, he's amped up. He's a character, but man, that Attitude Era never happens without Vince Russo, man. He called it Crash TV. And the philosophy was simple. It's not about 30-minute match. It's not always, when you hear even BC say, man, I would have loved if that match had 6 more minutes, 10 more minutes. It's not always the case that a match needs more time to be a good match or to be booked properly. And Vince Russo showed you that you could have matches that went fucking 90 seconds. You could have matches that went 3-4 minutes. And you were talking about them at the water cooler the next day or the fountain at school or at work. However old you were talking about most of what happened on Raw every Monday or SmackDown, Crash TV, because the time utilized, that 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, it was unforgettable. The time was utilized, it was maximized at the most amped up of levels and measurements. Whereas now, today, 2, 3, 4, 5-minute segments, it's sleep-inducing. You're just trying to get the show done with these days. There's nothing memorable on these shows. They add 5, 10 minutes to a 7, 8-minute match, and now a match is 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes. Okay, what happened? Why should we have cared for the match to begin with? What are we caring about coming out of the match? You hear a lot about the Attitude Era. It's because the Attitude Era was so much fun. And the Monday Night Wars made it more fun. You watched with a remote in your hand and you had to keep going last channel. It was so much fun. Competition was bringing out the best out of one another. So Vince Russo takes a lot of heat in the community, but, well, he's been to the dance. And most people giving him that heat are people that weren't even invited to the dance. It was a good, nice rant that is so true, and I never really thought of that aspect. You know, he puts himself at the forefront of everything. He has this need to be the guy. And it's almost like the wrestlers are just like toys to him. It's so weird. I can't really explain it. And I know I got the podcast. I'm the one with the gift to gab, so I should be able to explain this. But it just comes across like these are just like, it's almost like a kid with action figures. But now he's an adult with a lot of money, Papa's money. So he bought all the wrestlers, and it's almost like he's just producing a show for one. Anyway, the story is so wild you could easily make an entire 3-hour show on this discussion solely. But we'll move on to what Tony Khan said just a few hours ago, actually, trying to defend his unraveling over the last 30 or so hours. And I'm not even going to give you the exact quote because he just talks about how his mom was battling health issues last year, this exact time frame, maybe even to the day. And he talks about how a year ago, when he was by his mom's bedside while she was battling these issues, he was getting calls from his talent about contract tampering. So WWE was trying to see what their contract status is and get them out of the contract. Now, we believe that was just Paul Levesque McMahon just asking some questions, prying a little bit. Nothing big. Chris Jericho, we heard, or at least was reported as one of the whistleblowers. We don't know who the other ones are. But he said that it was at that time where this became a little bit more personal to him to defeat WWE. And then he says, here we are a year to the date, and they're going in basically to NXT, and he's got this passion to beat WWE on Tuesday night, but that should not be the goal. The goal should be to make your product the very best. Make your show the very best, man. And if you beat them down the line, do it like you've been there before. Do it with honor and prestige. You don't gotta sink so low or be such a douche. Beat them, be the victor. The ball is in their court now to get up to your standards. If your goal is just to beat the competition and not pay attention to your own product, you're going to lose, and we know that because history repeats itself, and there was 3 letters called WCW that'll tell you the entire story. A lot of people around that WCW, the final days of that company, they'll be glad to tell you the lessons that they learned. So then he goes and says that I shouldn't be surprised but the same WWE avatar accounts that spam him every day. So he's getting WWE like diehard fans, I guess, that just give him a lot of shit on social media. Then why be on it? Okay, you want to promote things, that's fine. Then get off. Other than that, I don't see why a grown man, anybody over the age of 18 for sure, if you're out of high school, I don't know why you're spending time on a social doohickey machine. Is there not enough things for you to do out in the world? But a guy like Tony, who's got so many things that he does during a day, company-wise, from Jaguars to wrestling to a soccer team to who knows what else. He's on committees and stuff for college. He does a lot. But the one thing he does more than anything is he plays around on social, it looks like. Get off of it. Why do you care about WWE avatars or account? Get off of it. If you get off, you don't see any, you don't hear about, you don't care about it. If you just don't be a part of it. I never understood that with a lot of wrestlers and especially Tony Khan. And then he says that it's because of all of that he can't stand these people to the bottom of his heart and with all his soul, he says. I mean, that's just going to spark more tribalism. So the people that are pushing your buttons and you're allowing it because then you go back and forth on social media and then you guys just fucking, that's what they want. They just want some attention, just giggle at your response. I got ya. That's all they want. So you give it to them. And then it eats at you afterwards. And you can't just let it go by the time you lay your head down on the fucking pillow at night. To the point where you can't stand all of those WWE fans that push your buttons and give you shit. Well, you're just going to spark the tribalism even more then. That's not needed. Even if you really can stand them, you don't say that publicly. I just don't understand most of what this dude does. I really don't, man. If there was ever a guy that needs a PR guy or Papa Khan or somebody's Papa to just I don't care if it's Papa H at this. I can't believe I'm willing to give Papa H a big task. Go help Mr. Khan, Mr. Tony Khan, because this dude first start with taking his phone away, then have an intervention, and then go from there. Restrict him on any and all interviews. Take him out of the media scrums as the focal point. That should be, Russo brought this up beautifully, that should be for the talent and the talent only. If you want to have a quick little 4 or 5 minute thing of the media scrum, that's fine, like Paul Levesque does. He steps up, he's there for about 4 or 5 minutes, answers some questions, and then he's out, let the talent come in. But you ain't got to sit out there, man. It's one thing if you're doing the company favors and you're actually answering good questions and it's good to have you out there. You know, a boss that's willing to sit out there. That's what we used to think. It's not that anymore. Now we know he says out there because he wants to be the face of the company, and you can't be because you shouldn't be. You're not good at it. A lot of people don't know this about Vince. You just know the Attitude Era, and he was like part of the biggest storyline with Stone Cold. Do you guys know that when I started watching wrestling, I never knew Vince was the owner? You never would have known. Never would have known. I had family at the time that had to tell me one day. They're like, yeah, you do know that that's the owner, right? I go, no, that's the broadcaster. No, he's the owner. Vince McMahon was just a broadcaster. That's it. He was on a headset. I thought he was just an announcer. When I found out, after all those years of watching wrestling, that he was the owner, I could not believe it. He didn't become a part of the storylines until really the Bret Hart situation. Montreal Screwjob, what was that, guys? November 97? I started watching wrestling in the 80s. I mean, many years went by. I never knew this guy was the owner. He never put himself as the face of the company. Never wanted that. It was the talent. Hulk Hogan was on all the interviews. Hulk Hogan was doing all the radio spots. Hulk Hogan was doing all the appearances, or the Warrior, or the Savages, the Undertaker. There was a show called Regis and Regis and Kathy Lee. Regis Philbin, since passed. Much love and respect to Regis. I think the show's still on, but it doesn't have Regis or Kathy Lee anymore. I think Kelly Ripa and maybe somebody else. She's had about 100 co-hosts. Anyway, there was a shows like that. They would have all the wrestlers on, man. I mean, you at times would like stay home from school or like go in late. You would like beg, come on, I really want to watch. It's at 9 a.m. Let me go in at 10. I'll go to school at 10. And sometimes if your parents were in a good mood, they'll go fine. Just to see an interview, because it was a special thing to see them in an outside world interview, you know? Undertaker once made an appearance, full Undertaker gimmick. Regis Philbin is like, it was great, man. Warrior, all warriored up with Regis. And I mean, that's just one show of many. But when they did Saturday, or like Tonight shows, things like that, or hosting a Saturday night, anything like that, man, it wasn't Vince. I just don't know why this dude feels the need to do we always talked about micromanaging and how that's going to bring Vince down, and eventually a lot of people do say that it did. Well, what about Tony Khan, man? Talk about micromanaging? He could be the fucking picture in the dictionary of micromanaging. Anyway, that's the latest. He's trying to defend his because this is personal to him, he says. Because his mom was battling ever since the WWE contract tampering. He just can't let it go. And then he says because of the WWE Avatar gang, that he just can't stand them even more. Hates them to the bottom of his heart with all his soul. Well, that's really going to make him say, oh man, then all right. I'll leave you alone, Mr. Khan. I can't stand tribalism in pro wrestling. Well, talk to Tony Khan about it, because apparently he loves it. Guys, before I take off, if you don't mind, see if I can get this up, man. I want to give some shout outs to some super chat, super thankers in yesterday's podcast. I believe this was the first podcast. We put up 2 yesterday. This was the first one, I believe. And there was a lot of coffees being thrown at the channel. I appreciate you guys big time. A 2 spot by Sam Byers, just saying thanks, BC. Sam Byers, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you caught both podcasts yesterday. Ash Stegmeister Steggles, 2 spot. TK needs to chill the F out every time he takes an L. He also needs to realize life's greatest teacher is failure, and he can learn from those failures, or he just needs to grow the F up. Or option B, just grow up. I like that. Ash Steggles, no question, man. Failure, oftentimes, if utilized correctly, can lead to success. That's from BC, by the way. That's a BC quote, not Ash Stegmeister Steggles. Appreciate you, brother. Clutch City Fan with a 5-spot coffee. Yesterday's first podcast. Clutch City Fan, I appreciate the coffee, dude. BC, I've been saying this for a long time. While I admire Tony for trying to change the game, I think he talks too damn much. He needs to worry about putting on some storylines that'll bring people like me back to watch their product. I stopped watching for a reason. They care about their wrestling more than captivating stories. And it's sad because when they first came in the picture, I was excited. Now I don't care to watch. Anyways, BC, how about them Astros? You're soon to be still World Series champions. Take care, my brother. And Red Team, go! Clutch City Fan, if they find a different way to cheat, the Astros will absolutely win another World Series this year. Salute. Come on, Clutch City Fan. I had to. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah. No doubt. I mean, the AEW has conquered the wrestling aspect, but I think the world of pro wrestling is trying to tell him you need more than just 2 dudes doing sequences. It's going to take a lot more to have a good wrestling show. Clutch City Fan. Salute, man. Jimmy Fingers 19 with a 10 spot. Couple of coffees. Jimmy Fingers 19 gold status says as much as it is a fact that Paul Levesque McMahon acted in desperation by pulling in the reinforcements to beat TK and AEW in the ratings, Tony Khan needs to take a step back. Just come to terms that he just got a taste of the reality that AEW's main roster cannot compete with WWE's main roster and should not consider going head to head with them anytime soon until He gives the book to someone who knows what they are doing, because AEW has the roster to hang 19 out. Jimmy Figures 19, that's what I'm saying, man. I've always praised the roster that Tony Khan has. He has too many great talents. I mean, the guy's got a roster of 200 individuals. He needs to cut about 80, 90 of them, 100 of them, unfortunately. And most of them are really, really great. But if you're not going to use, I mean, how do you mess up Wardlow 5 times? He found a way to do it. I'm not going to run down the line. There's been so many talents that you thought was going to get the rocket or should have or had consistency in their booking, had a little bit of momentum and could have been rolled with, and all of a sudden they're just sitting at catering. And then you hear an interview 3 months later, yeah, I don't know what was going on with that. Or you hear Malachi Black while he's out going, I don't know why I'm never having singles matches. They only want me in 6-mans. That's what he said. Keith Lee, I don't know what they're doing with me. Sometimes I get the call to go to Dynamite, and then they say, "Oh, you can stay here, but you're not actually you're going to be on Rampage. We need you over in ROH." The stories you hear are just wild. Anyway, my point is Jimmy Figures 19, very, very good and valid points that I pretty much agree with in totality. Yeah. And guys, on top of that, I don't know if I can pull up the second one. Hold on. I want to see if there was a coffee on the second podcast that was thrown. I thought there was. Yes. It is God to Me. There it is. God to Me. Appreciate ya at the 2-spot coffee, and if I can get the comment, that would be great. Hold on, I lost it on the big screen. See, now I'm just pressing a lot of buttons. There it is. Tony Khan, be cool and relax. I like that. A simplistic message. RELAX. Old school Aaron Rodgers. God to Me. I appreciate the coffee. Big time. Always good to see you up in here. And if I missed anybody else, guys, I will get the list in its totality. Right now, I'm just trying to go by podcast because I don't have that list in front of me. But if I did miss anybody, just know that I either did already get it or will. And I appreciate the coffee big time. And again, to all the new subscribers that joined on over the last 24 hours, over the last 2 podcasts that we did, appreciate you guys big time. Honestly, welcome to the channel. Hopefully, even if you disagree or we're talking about something you don't want to talk about, hopefully you still enjoy the conversation and the discussion. Hopefully I'm entertaining you. Hopefully there is a lot of knowledge being passed around. Or at the bare minimum, just don't listen to that podcast and come on back. But I'm sure there'll be times where there's sensitive topics, you know, but please be amplified and don't whine about it, because the 5+ years I've had this channel, people whine as if we're gonna care, right? And then they're like, I'm leaving. That we're not an airport. You don't go to announce your departure. Das Boot. You know, so my one request when you join the channel, when you smash that subscription button, is just be amplified. Be a badass dude or gal. But I like to deal with badasses because I know there's no bitch boy Bradens in the room. I love that. You know, badassery, man. So we can be amplified and we don't have to BS. We can just talk like real individuals would talk. Until next time, and there will be that next time. Top guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Peace.